We have Varun, who is the co-founder of Hashflow, and he'll be taking us through Exchange OS, one of the first zkVM powered trading infrastructure that is using to power Hibachi, their provable exchange. And this is a very exciting use case. Varun's been building this for over a year now. And yeah, we are excited to support them and deep dive a little bit more as to how RISC Zero, Celestia, and Hashflow are working together to make this provable app possible. Welcome, Varun.
Right, hello, can you hear me? All right, excellent. So, hey guys, this is Varun here, the co-founders of Hashflow. A bit of a background on me, I started in crypto like nearly 8 years ago. Prior to that, had a background in aerospace engineering, so I was more like a satellite person, was building like rocket ships or miniature rockets, and then eventually got into crypto. And then started Hashflow like in 2022. And things have been quite exciting since then. So to start with, first of all, it's a pleasure to have all of you here. And also a big thank you for RISC Zero team and Celestia for helping us putting this event together. So today I'm excited to share our vision for the future. So when we say Houston, we have a bottleneck. I think I'd like to walk through 3 key things today. One would be, what exactly is provable, and why do we think, or why it's going to be superior in terms of building consumer-facing applications that are going, and also why we think it's going to be the future of how we build trust and transparency. Then second, we'll talk about the XOS, or the Exchange OS, which is our new product. It's a ZK settlement layer that allows any exchange to become provable. And then lastly, we'll talk about Hibachi, which happens to be our new exchange, which is going to be powered by XOS, along with RISC Zero and Celestia underneath. And maybe a bit of an alpha drop towards the end, because all of you guys are here early, maybe a little too early. So to get started, when we say we have a bottleneck, we are referring to the blockchain or the current paradigm of how things are being built, right? So the decentralized applications today that are using blockchain technology, they do a fabulous job when it comes to ensuring trust and transparency, but they happen to fall short when you compare them to powerful, seamless user applications or user experiences that you see when you use apps like Uber, Twitter, and so on, right? So, and one of the reasons why we think this is the case is because of the paradigm of building everything on-chain. So today, I think the key design philosophy in decentralized application or decentralized app space is to put everything on-chain. Like, I think, and we fundamentally think that's a flawed design philosophy, and likely the reason why we quite haven't hit the escape velocity we want to like to see in terms of how do you drive adoption of these applications, right? So if you're building everything on-chain, you're essentially bottlenecked by the limitations of the underlying L1, and which frankly is not quite practical if you're trying to build applications that are powerful enough to power things like high-frequency trading and such, right? So what would be the solution to address this, right? Because one school of thought here is to build new L1 that will have a higher throughput, can scale, and then obviously Ethereum has a very different roadmap around scalability and such. But at the same time, no matter what you do, at the end of the day, it's really, really hard to build a decentralized system that is going to be on par with something like AWS, right, for example. So essentially, how can we get there where we build applications that are as compelling as, the consumer-facing apps that we use, popularly used, but at the same time, we still end up getting the properties of transparency and trust and sovereignty which is the core ethos of crypto. So this is where the provable approach becomes a thing, right? So the whole idea behind making any application provable is we're saying you basically design anything in the most centralized way possible. Do not change anything about it. Like if you're an application builder, build this application in a way that is designed for the end user, right? At the same time, you take the most critical transactions that are necessary to prove the integrity of the application, and you use them, or you prove them on chain using ZK technology. And like I think, for example, what RISC Zero has done is they did a phenomenal job in terms of turning ZK into something that can now be used in consumer-facing applications, right? For the context, like 5 years ago when we said ZK is still not quite there yet, we used to talk like ZK is the future, but there's still a long way to go. But I think now is finally the time where ZK has matured enough that it can be used in consumer-facing applications and can be used in a way that actually makes it really, really performant. For context, like 5 years ago, I think Stark was one of the only things that was out there, and it would take 8 hours to prove or generate a ZK proof. And now with RISC Zero, we are able to do this in less than 10 minutes. And not to mention, that's a big, big improvement, right? Just in the span of 5 years. And then also the cost of generating the proof has gone down significantly to the point where you can actually build these powerful applications without being bottlenecked by the prover times or cost and so on. So essentially the idea is to run all the heavy lifting off-chain, because the core principle here is that blockchains are an amazing tool when it comes to proving and verifying complex computations, but they may not be so ideal when it comes to running complex computations on-chain. So essentially, the goal here is to not even run computations that are complicated on-chain, just do them off-chain, and then just get them proved on-chain, right? So now, with that core principle in mind, I think I'd like to talk a bit more about Exchange OS, which is a new product that we announced like 4 weeks ago. And the idea here is to build a ZK settlement layer that enables any exchange to become provable. And why an exchange? Because, obviously, crypto exchanges happen to be one of the more prominent applications that have been in the space for the last 8 to 10 years, right? So, and yet, if you see like applications like Binance, Coinbase, OKX, and so on, they still sort of inherit the same design risk that led to the FTX fiasco. So on the other hand, those applications do tend to attract most of the users precisely because of the user experience that they offer, right? So how do you build applications that are as powerful as FTX, Binance, and the Bybits of the world, at the same time guaranteeing that you're not going to get rugged, essentially, right? So how do you prevent another FTX from happening at the same time guaranteeing the UX that it enables, right? So this is essentially what XOS has been designed to do. Is basically what it does in function is an exchange runs its operations in the most centralized way possible, but then it takes its order book transactions, bundles them together, then you compute ZK proof on it using Bonsai, and then you submit that proof to the blockchain of your choice, right? So that's where the trades get settled. So, and then you publish these trades onto a DA like Celestia, right? That's what we're using today. So the idea is that any user can recreate the state using the transaction data on Celestia, but at the same time, all the all the transactions do take place off-chain. So you essentially end up achieving really, really high performance, but at the same time, you're also able to guarantee your users the proof of solvency, right, which doesn't otherwise exist. You can prove with guarantee and say, like, the exchange has enough in its reserves to meet its liabilities, and you can prove that with math, right? So that's the general idea around the Exchange OS, and which leads us to the next thing, which is the first provable exchange, right? So this was something, again, it was announced a couple of weeks ago, so fairly new. And Hibachi is basically leveraging XOS along with RISC Zero and Celestia underneath to basically create the first perps exchange, which is like built for pro traders in mind, and again, secured by ZK Math, right? So the idea here is to build something that is completely optimized for power traders, where you can trade with sub-millisecond latency. You can actually do high-frequency trading. You can do all the fun things that you like about platforms like FTX or OKX and so on. Right? At the same time, you still have mathematical guarantee that the exchange operator is always being honest, right? So, and if in case there is any doubts that the exchange operator might be malicious, you can basically exit from the exchange without their permission. So this basically sets the foundation for what the future of provable apps entail, right? And this is the beginning now. We are saying this is like the first provable application, but likely not the last, right? But it's leading the charge in terms of how the future of consumer apps are going to be, right? And this is one of the first ones to set foot in the ground. Now, to conclude, obviously I said there'll be a bit of an alpha here. So clearly, we announced this project like 2 weeks ago, and we're here to talk to all of you guys to tell you more about it. At the moment, it's like still closed, but for all of you here, that come talk to us, and Thibaut is right there. So if you guys would like to try out the application, it's like actually live, but it's still closed access. But if anybody would like to try it, come talk to me, and I'll be happy to give you access code to it. And there might be some benefits to being that early that we can discover eventually, without giving too many details there. So I think that would be the conclusion of my talk. Happy to take any questions, and I think that also puts us on time with the programming. So thank you very much again for joining us, and questions from anyone, happy to chat.
Hi. So this solves the issue of proving the transactions and the order book, right? The biggest issue that DEXs have right now to compete with centralized exchanges is the liquidity to some extent. How is Exchange OS solving that? Is it like Hashflow is a part of the liquidity thing, or is there a way that zkVM can also be used to use cross-chain liquidity in some sense and improve on the liquidity efficiency? Do you still need market makers to fulfill the orders, or are you using AMMs in that case?
Yeah, so it's a central limit order book, right? So the way it's going to work is you basically have traders or market makers, right? So to provide liquidity, but then again, it's open to anybody to come in, plug in. If they are API traders, they can just trade the way they would normally do. So one of the ideas behind Hibachi was to create or keep the experience as close as possible to centralized exchanges, because most traders happen to already have adapters built in for Binance, Coinbase, etc. So what you don't want to do is make them reinvent the wheel or do things that take time. Because one of the things when we initially built Hashflow as an RFQ protocol was we basically had to, that was a massive learning curve on every market maker trader side to basically build RFQ infra to be able to support on-chain trading, right? So, which actually took us months to get there. So one of the things we learned from that is, let's not repeat that mistake again. Instead, let's build this in such a way that as a user, your experience should not be any different. Whether you are a developer, a trader, or somebody who's using just the interface as a retail, the onboarding should be exactly identical to like a Sexes, right? So that was one of the things. But to answer your question on liquidity, it can work both ways, right? You can use market makers and it will work. And even if you're using an AMM sort of model, you can run a fully on-chain AMM, but you can also run an off-chain AMM where you basically, again, do order matching on using a bonding curve off-chain, but then you basically prove those transactions on-chain by computing a ZK proof on that. So it's not limited to Club. If someone wants to build an AMM that is provable, you can actually do that too. So it can work both ways.
What L1 are you settling to, and is the exchange cross-chain, like Hibachi? Is it cross-chain?
So today, it's currently live on Arbitrum, but in the coming months in the roadmap, we basically plan to add support for Solana, then there's Bitcoin on the roadmap, and other Ethereum as well, right? So the idea would be, it's chain agnostic. Like it doesn't matter what chain you're on, because as long you should be able to use any asset as a collateral to take position on across any asset, and it should feel as seamless as a centralized exchange, right? And then in terms of settlement, you're essentially doing a cross-chain settlement where you're basically posting the proof on every chain where users end up holding their balances, right? So it's chain agnostic in the sense of where the reserves lie, but then the ZK proof is being computed off-chain and being.
Thank you.
That's it. All right. Thank you, everyone.